Hi, welcome back to Module 2, Part 3. We spoke about deployment, we spoke about options that are available for us around like the farm, single farm or multiple. We spoke about database. Let's have a look at the HA consideration when it comes to designing and implementing ADFS. Hopefully in this section you will be able to ensure the availability of your ADFS and as I mentioned earlier, ADFS is often the authentication provider for my business critical application. Without it, user will not be able to authenticate access. So it is a such important piece we need to take care of, and the most crucial part is the HA of my server. So previously, part 2, we spoke about the deployment. Let's have a look at the HA part. High availability consideration within Windows internal database. Windows internal database is on each ADFS server, so there's no need for fault tolerance database level. However, I need to take care of the front end level. Replication can happen at HTTP endpoint, not a SQL server replication. This is Windows internal replication. It's using the default port, which is port 80, and you can change it, and I would recommend to change it to prevent attack against this port, or if you want to consume it for something else. And this is happen at 5-minute interval time, and again you can change it. Let me recap. If you deploy ADFS using Windows internal database, there is really not much need to be done for HA from database level. The ADFS server should be load balanced behind a VIP or virtual IP address, but there's no additional consideration to be needed to ensure HA of WID, which is in Windows internal database. Because of the importance of this role, ADFS configuration database plays a major role. Okay? When you need to add a federation server to a farm, all what you have to do is just add a new computer, and that computer or server will become a secondary federation. And that's all basically. If something happens, all what you have to do is evicting the primary with the issue, run PowerShell, convert it into the secondary to primary, and the primary will start serving, because every 5 minutes will capture the data from the previous one. Simple as that. And this is incremental transfer process which require less traffic. Okay? If the primary server is offline, user can still authenticate to other ADFS servers. Change cannot be made by the admin, which is fine. We can live without that one for a few minutes or a couple of hours maybe, depending on your SLA. Primary can be moved to another server using PowerShell, and then you move it back when you fix the issue. Now, earlier, if you recall, this is all Windows internal database. Now, what happened if I decided to go down the route of SQL database or SQL server? SQL does not run on ADFS farm, which is different from Windows internal database. So we mentioned earlier, if I use WID can sit on the same server. Okay, so less VMs to run. But if I use SQL, no. You need to have a proper SQL server to run this. If the SQL server is unreachable by ADFS, users will not be able to authenticate, whereas in the previous one, no, they are fine. Users can still use it, but only admin cannot carry out admin activities. It is a fault tolerance from back end, but you have to implement SQL servers. So by putting SQL server, you are adding additional complexity for HA, but again, depends. You might have something, if the deployment is really big, multi-regional, multi-site, then last thing you want is placing, because if you recall earlier, this primary will serve the request for the deployment. So if I got 2 regions, let's just say like EMEA and NAM, North America, then you go a long journey to traverse. So it makes sense to place one node there, one SQL server there, one node here, one SQL here, and allow the node to serve the request locally. But again, the first option is valid as well, and you can see from previous 2012 and older versions of ADFS to SQL cluster in different data centers, synchronized mirroring required between a cluster, and you need fitness server to fail over between them. But now after that, Microsoft improved it. You no longer require this one. From R2 and above, you can use SQL always on. So I don't need to specify the principle of the SQL server and the partner. Something might look like this, with HA available across different data centers. So you can see this one could be data center 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, depends. When you have something like this, you need to consider using global load balancer to increase the HA and possibly access time by client. If you recall earlier, I mentioned if I go North America, Europe, different data centers in North America, different data centers in Europe, maybe Africa, Middle East, APAC, Asia, then I will need a proper load balancer. I will call it global. You can see this is global load balancer, need to be fault tolerance as well, and that we can basically set the load balancer to send the request locally. When I say locally, if I live in the state, request come to my load balancer, straight away knows I'm in the state, send me to the node sitting there to cut down that journey, rather than come down all the way to Europe and back to the state. Again, the latency impact this business. Yes, it is tiny milliseconds, tiny token, but we are talking about enterprise deployment. You can utilize something like Microsoft Traffic Manager, Geo load balance, or you can use a proper, actually not say proper, but you can use a major, like a 5 load balancer, which is my favorite, and you can use other, NetScaler and so on. That's all what I had for you for today for part 3 of module 2, which is high availability. Please, if you have a question, do post it and I should be able to answer you. But these are the major, I will say, consideration around deployment. Thank you for watching, and I shall see you in module 2 part 4.